This is going to be a quick video on how to use GarageBand. Let's dive right in. So first we want to go to settings and make sure that our sound is correct. So for our output device, we're going to be using, you could use your computer speakers, you could use the headphone jack. System setting will default to whatever your Mac is set to. If you're using a Helix floor unit, that'll be listed in here as well. So if you have a headphone adapter, 3.5 mil, I believe to 1/4 inch, you'd be able to plug your headphones into the Helix and select that as your output. If you don't have that adapter, go ahead and select either your computer speakers or the headphone jack. For your input device, if you're using Helix floor, you would pick that here, or your audio interface, like I use a Scarlett 2i2 USB. Cool. Once you have output and input selected, let's move on to recording. So what I have here are different tracks. You can create new tracks by right-clicking and doing new audio track or new drummer track. New software instrument track as well for all the synths and stuff. The example we're going to talk through today is if I want to record against a song. So what I've done here is I've found my Veil of Isis by the Sword MP3 file, and I've just clicked and dragged it into GarageBand to create this track. Let's talk through the buttons here. This is our mute button, so I can turn this track on and off. I could solo this track, which means it's the only track I would hear. And then there's input monitoring. This is for if I was recording guitar. So if I'm recording guitar and I want to hear live what I'm playing, you're going to turn input monitoring on. You only want this button turned on for the track you're using. If you have it turned on for multiple tracks, it takes more processing power. So best practice is to leave it turned off unless you're actually recording, and then turn it on for the track you're using. Cool. Let's talk about metronome and tempo. So Veil of Isis does not have a consistent tempo. 122 is pretty close, but it's not exact. So if you want to record against this track, you have two options. The first option is to not use the metronome, which is this button here. So I have that turned off, and then I have my drum track turned off, which we're going to get to in a second. I just bring the cursor back to the beginning. I can click enter, and that will also bring the playhead back to the beginning of the project, and then I click record. It immediately starts recording the track that I have selected, and then I can hear Veil of Isis going in the background. I click pause, or the space bar, to stop the recording. You can also, this turns into a stop button, and you can stop it as well. If I don't like my takes, I can highlight them and do right click and delete. I can also do Command Z immediately after a recording, and that'll undo my last action. When it comes to the levels, these are your volume controls. So if I was trying to record against Veil of Isis, I would probably want to turn the Veil of Isis track down, and I would keep my track where it is or turn it up a little bit depending on how I have my Helix volume set. If I wanted to hear my guitar in one ear and the track in another ear, I can use the pan function to do that. So I could put my guitar in the left side and the track in the right side. Something else that's kind of cool if you're just listening to this track is that the pan, because this is a stereo track, the right is one guitar and the left is the other guitar. So if I wanted to listen to the harmonies specifically, I would be able to pan them so that I could hear exactly the notes that were being played. While we're talking about levels, here's your master volume up here, the slider. And then while we're talking about page level controls, this slider here controls how detailed or like wide or narrow your track is. So if you wanted to see the whole track, you would slide it to the left. But if you were zooming in on something, you would slide it to the right. And then you can see more specifically where you are in the overall track. Cool. So going back to recording, once I record something, if I like it, I can leave it here as take one and move on to take two. So I could mute the track I had previously recorded, turn off the input monitoring, and then record a second take using this track. And then if I right click and do new audio track, I can just keep making tracks. I can also Command D, and that duplicates. So you got a couple options there. If you did want to record against a metronome instead of the track, you would mute your track. And then this is where you have two options, either the metronome itself, which is this button here at this click rate. You can also do a count in, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I click the record button, it's going to count me in for 4 beats and then start recording. As you can see there, I actually started recording over the MP3 file, which I don't want to do. So I'll click Command Z and then go back up here and I would record there. So that's how to record with a metronome. Myself, I prefer the sound of the drums. So I have a drum track that I've pre-created down here. you can right click and do new drummer track, and then if you double click on the sound file, it gives you these options. So this is the SoCal drummer. These are the different grooves or beat presets that you have, and then within these presets you can make them more or less complex, loud or soft, and you can see that that actually changes the file I have selected. If I select all of the drum tracks, this will change all of them at the same time. When I'm recording, I keep it down here, simple and soft, so that I have a basic backbeat. You can also turn on or off cymbals and move the slider around for different cymbal grooves. Same for kick snare grooves. And then this controls your fills. So if you wanted to have more or less excitement at the end of each bar, you can do that too. This is not a training on how to use the Apple Drummer, but really what you just saw is how you use it. So feel free to play around. When I'm recording, I leave it on half pipe. I drop it down here and I keep the fills maybe a little bit up so I can tell when I'm about to change a bar, and that keeps me on track. The very last thing that we should talk about is how to save. So that would be File, Save. I'll do Save As so you can see the modal. So there you go. So you can give it a name, you put it in a folder, and you click Save. It doesn't auto-save, so when you make a good track, I recommend saving. So that way if you accidentally do an undo, you can revert back to the track that you liked. That really is it. I hope you enjoyed this demo. Have a good one.